I felt like for a while the Raptors could see themselves upgrading if they were to move on from RJ Barrett in the trade market. And it's no secret the Raptors have been shopping him. They've discussed him in trades. They even offered him to the Pelicans in the deal that acquired Brandon Ingram. Obviously ended up going in a different direction. So far this season, RJ Barrett has played quite well. He's been definitely somebody that's helping the Raptors win games. To what degree of help he's providing, opinions kind of vary there, but he's definitely helped winning for the team this season. He has played well, but unfortunately, he's gone down with an injury. We're going to have a brief amount of time without him playing. And even though I absolutely would prefer to have RJ Barrett healthy because I think he's a good player that helps this team, now that he is injured, I'm interested in seeing how different lineups can look and how successful those different lineups can look with the other four starters, not including RJ Barrett. So all this is doing is just providing us a larger sample size of what the starters look like, minus Barrett plus somebody else. And I talked about this, I think, last week on one of these shows where I said, I'm not ready to make a change to the starting five. Absolutely not ready to make a change to the starting five. But we absolutely should maybe start considering what the starting five could look like if it went with a different player instead of RJ Barrett. As we got a visitor down here, my dog jumping up. Can you see my dog? There she is. Hi, buddy. Now, I'm not saying we should be making a change to the starting five. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting maybe consider it because there's been a lot of games this season where the Raptors have started poorly. And it kind of feels like they're starting dragging their feet through the mud. And I think part of that is down to what we had concerns about going into the season, which was, for sure, conversations about the fit of the starting five. Yes, there's talent here, but how well do they fit together? Now, they have closed games terrifically, which would maybe lead you to think the other way, where it's like, well, they have so much talent here, they're able to get through. But I feel like as the game kind of changes to a more half-court battle, ISO battle, as the game slows down, that's where maybe the Raptors can thrive in those clutch situations because they have so many different individual weapons, such as RJ Barrett. Maybe at the start of the game, some of that spacing is a little bit more important for the Raptors to have. So again, I'm not ready to make that change, but at least in this stretch of games, we've been given the opportunity to see what those changes could look like, so we at least have some further evidence in case the Raptors think they may have to make a change to the starting five, which again, I'm not ready to make as of yet. But RJ Barrett thankfully avoided structural damage to his knee. He's going to be reevaluated in a week. That was the report that we got yesterday. So midweek, next week, he'll be reevaluated. Doesn't mean that he'll be back, but just means he'll be reevaluated there. You would think if he's being reevaluated in a week, he'll be back in a week or a week to a week and a half. That would be your expectation there. But left the game on Monday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. We were able to see the Raptors close with Jamal Shead, and that looked terrific. Jamal Shead and Emmanuel Quickley minutes this season together have been terrific for this Raptors team. And then we got to see in the next game, the Raptors start Jacoby Walter alongside the rest of the usual starting five, which provided a little bit more of a floor spacer and defensive player to the starting five, a more 3-and-D type of player. Definitely the type of player I think would maximize the lineup more than what RJ Barrett is doing. I'm not saying I would do it with Jacoby Walter because he's not the level I'd say, that's the guy you like permanently replace RJ Barrett with. Maybe like just for a starter, you do. Doesn't mean RJ can't play 30 minutes. Just means that's the guy who starts the game. But like if we can get a better version of Jacoby Walter in a trade, for example, where we move RJ Barrett, that would be something I would explore. But it's just, again, just seeing what the lineups look like with that different archetype of a player rather than RJ Barrett. And then in the game against the Indiana Pacers, the Raptors went a little bit bigger. They started Colin Murray-Boyles instead of RJ Barrett. That looked ugly. That did not work. Certain lineups, at certain times and certain teams that we're playing against, I think that could work, but definitely not against the Pacers. I didn't feel like that was necessary. I think it looked a little bit better. I mean, it looked a lot better. I mean, I'm sure it looked a lot better when Jacoby Walter was playing instead of Colin Murray-Boyles with the starters. Anyways, Joey Walter had a great game there. Anyways, we've gotten a little bit of a taste of the different lineups that can exist and different styles of play that can exist for the starters if there's a different style of player than RJ Barrett. So, because we have this additional sample size, I wanted to look at the 4 starters other than RJ Barrett and how they have performed with another player this season. As for the lineup with RJ Barrett, they're +5 in the season. This was a 5-man unit that was negative to start the season and has slowly gotten themselves up to +5 in the season, which is a good sign. Very, very good sign. Been much worse as a starters rather than closers, but it's a positive sign that they are now in the positive and they're starting to get better. So maybe like the problem is just gone to begin with. You don't have to worry about this anymore. But again, just because now we have the further sample size, I'm interested. We've only had 14 minutes of the starters with Jacoby Walter instead of RJ Barrett, -8.5 in those minutes. Very small sample size. Eye test wise, I feel like it's been decent, especially in that Pacers game. But -8.5, we'll go with that number there. What is very interesting is in the 12 minutes with Shed instead of Barrett, the Raptors are +47.8 as far as net rating is concerned, which is quite tremendous, to be honest. And it's kind of highlighting, like I said, we've had some good minutes with Shed and Quickly playing together. I think why that lineup kind of works is because, especially like to close games, how we close the game against the Cavaliers, you have that really good defender in Shed, and he's been an extraordinary playmaker this season. And it gets Emmanuel Quickly into his more, I'd say, more comfortable role playing off ball as a shooting guard, and you can kind of utilize his spacing a little bit more when you get him into that position there. So I'm not saying Shed should dethrone Quickly as a starter, but I really do enjoy the minutes we get when we have Jamal Shed and Emmanuel Quickly playing together, and when they're with the rest of the starting 5, based on this very, very small sample size, things are clicking there. So haven't had a ton of minutes there of these 4 players with a different starter than RJ Barrett, but maybe more information will have to follow for us to really gauge what we could actually learn from it. But I think that there are signs that show that there could be an improvement out there for the Raptors. Again, RJ Barrett drives winning, so I'm not on board with the Raptors making RJ Barrett a salary dump like they tried to do for Brandon Ingram last season. I much prefer the trade that happened, which was Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, 2026 first via the Pacers, which has now turned into a good pick, obviously. But anyways, and a second, I much prefer that over RJ Barrett and those picks. RJ Barrett is a talented player who can help the Raptors win games, and I think it's very good that he's on the team. But there is some hints that an upgrade could be out there. And I talked about it in a previous stream where maybe the Raptors look at the state of the East, look at their positioning in this current Eastern Conference, and maybe they say, well, it's pretty open. We could make a big splash and really improve our team. And I think a different archetype might help the Raptors do that. What I've seen, based on what I've seen right now from Walter, Shed with those guys, I'd probably say we're better off just keeping RJ Barrett starting for now. Keeping RJ Barrett with that unit. Let that unit click. That's the unit we want to get the most out of. So keep those guys playing together as much as possible. Continue starting together. I'll back off a little bit of the stance I was making of like maybe you think about changing the starting 5. Let's try and make this work. As for the trade season, I wouldn't mind packaging RJ with picks to upgrade there. But I don't have any real strong desire at all to just get off the RJ Barrett contract like the front office maybe would have thought, and maybe some people are thinking out there. RJ Barrett's a great player that helps this team win games. It's just interesting, and I think something you should look at in this run of games. It's interesting to see what it looks like without him. But if that Pacers game is really any indication, having RJ Barrett as a player who can put pressure on the rim in some tough situations is valuable for the team to have. There is value to his game. And while he's out, the Raptors will miss it a little bit, for sure.